All right, joining me live in the studio is Mr. Ahmed Naseem, a former foreign minister of the Maldives. Mr. Naseem, thank you so much for joining us on the discussion. Appreciate it. Thank you for making time.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you indeed. I want to come straight to the point. Will the MDP, the opposition party, and other parties be participating in this year's elections in the Maldives?
As a political party, I think boycotting an election is a no-go affair. You know, that's not the way to go about it. If we don't participate, we don't know the corruption in the elections. We would know what happened in the elections, and we would be handing over the entire thing to a dictator who is ruling the country today.
So you will not boycott the election, but will you insist on a caretaker government in the run-up to the election?
We have been talking about it. That's our plan. That's our strategy. Because we are in a coalition with all opposition parties, and we feel that there is a period that is needed to put things in order and then have an election, have the real election.
And will the former president and the leader of the MDP, Mohammad Nasheed, be traveling to the Maldives? Will he be contesting the presidential election come September this year?
We are hoping that he will be able to contest. But at the moment, as things stand, I don't see that happening unless there is a very strong pressure from India and the democracies of the world to see that this actually happens, because every international organization, including the United Nations, human rights organizations, they have all condemned the arbitrary detention of President Nasheed and the politically motivated trials that were conducted, not even in accordance with the Constitution of Maldives, not in accordance with international law. So they have demanded that these politically motivated trials are unfair, wrong, and the political leaders should be released immediately. In fact, on 1st of February, the Supreme Court of Maldives ruled that these trials were unfair, and if President Yamin or the government today wants to try the case again in accordance with the law, he is free to do so.
And before I come to India's role and your expectations from India, Mr. Minister Naseem, I have one final question on the elections per se. Now, will you, the opposition party, the MDP, and the other alliance partners, if there are, will you accept the results of the elections, come what may?
Oh, we will accept the results, provided it is in, it's in line with the Maldivian constitution, in line with the laws, and unfortunately today they have submitted some changes to the election laws to the parliament in the 11th hour. So these are things that we don't like very much. We will see when we reach there.
And many people around the world who might be watching you right now might be wondering, how credible will the election be when you have an opposition leader, the opposition leader, outside the country in exile? So how credible will those elections be at all?
No, nobody will consider these elections to be credible, and I don't see how the international community, specifically the democracies of the world, can recognize such a regime when President Yamin has all the political leaders in jail or in exile. So it will be very strange if that happens. Yes.
Mr. Naseem, let's talk about India now. How do you see India's role so far in the last 4 years under Prime Minister Modi, and even before for that matter? And what are your expectations from Prime Minister Modi's government in particular?
We would expect Prime Minister Modi's government to do the utmost to have a free and fair election, and not to and see that Maldives doesn't go into turmoil in the next 5 years again. And also this is endangering the security and the peace of Indian Ocean, and it is inviting the extremism into Maldives, which is flourishing very strongly, and also the Chinese invasion of our country, and land grab, and the type of contracts that they do, which has no transparency whatsoever, and this type of predatory commerce is not to our liking at all. That's the problem.
And talking about the Maldives, Minister Naseem, Maldives is one country which Prime Minister Modi has not visited so far. And that speaks a lot about the current state of relations between India and the Maldives. Now, how do you see Prime Minister Modi's policies, so-called neighborhood first policy, And where might Maldives fit in India's scheme of things in that context, when you talk of the neighborhood?
You see, I wouldn't say India has bad relations with Maldives. We are Maldivians. We don't have bad relations with Maldives. Maybe a government that is existing today, which is not in line with the constitution of Maldives, which is abusing the constitution, which is doing everything unlawful to sort of see that he can stay in power. It is with this person that India may have problems. Maldivian people love Indians. And we grew up with your music, with your dancers, with your food. And, you know, we can never give that up. So I believe that our two countries are forever bonded together. And we must see that we are able to find a way out of the situation that we are in. And we believe that the free nations of the world and India has the necessary imagination, the tools and the tactics that is required to bring this matter to an end.
Minister Naseem, you spoke about China's not so helpful role in the Maldives and in the region per se. Now, how serious a threat or challenge do you think China poses to the Maldives and to India and to other countries in the region per se? What exactly is China up to in the Maldives? I would ask you that question.
You very well know what's happening in the Spratlys and in South China Sea. If we allow another run to President Yamin and allow this system of governance to go on and looking east, which President Yamin declared earlier, when this policy continues, then we can say goodbye to the Maldives that we know, and also then Maldives will be a Chinese takeaway.
And talking about President Yamin and his government's policies in particular, have there been any contacts between the MDP and the President Yamin's government or his interlocutors? Because there were talks about having talks with the opposition in a bid to bring them around. So will you throw some light on the status of those talks, if at all they are happening as we speak?
No, there are no talks happening.
There is no communication whatsoever?
No talk that's going on. There is, what happens with President Yamin is, whenever he gets into a difficult situation, he starts talking about talks. Talks to have talks.
Right.
And then and many, often the international community had thought that he could, this time, maybe genuine. I think we have to forget all those things. We have to call a spade a spade. He can never be a friend of India. It will not happen. Because his finances, his pocket is filled from Chinese money. And it's not possible. They do the command and he does it. And we have gone to that state now. They tell President Yamin to get the Indian helicopters removed. And President Yamin has no other way. He has to remove it. So he informs you to remove the helicopters.
Right.
And then he will cancel the pilots' visas. He will cancel the visa applications from the Indian community so that there will be more Chinese than Indians in Maldives. So it's an unfortunate situation. You see, when a dictator begins to believe that he can do whatever he can, whatever he wants in a country, just because you can do something, you don't necessarily do it. That's not moral. And when he believes that he can do whatever he wants to do by imprisoning people and imprisoning statesmen, elder statesmen who have served the country for several years, and where does the state stand then? I'm ashamed to be actually talking about it as a Maldivian. It's a shame what's happening in Maldives.
So what is happening in the Maldives today as we speak? What about civil liberties? What about personal freedoms? What about media freedoms?
You see,
how bad is the situation?
Media has started censoring itself now. You see, for example, the opposition-aligned medias are all the time threatened. One TV station was burned down. And then others are getting threats. An anchor in Raja TV was beaten up so badly that he just almost lost his life. So these are the things that are going on. So they have to self-censor, and it's not a free media as you think it is, because you are subjected to all kinds of pressure from the government.
Mr. Ahmed Naseem, I would have loved to carry on the conversation, but I'm completely running out of time. Thank you so much for joining me on the discussion. Appreciate it. And hopefully we'll stay in touch with you going forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best, and I hope our relations with India will improve.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And that's a wrap on this discussion, but news continues on the other side of the short break.